Hello. How's everybody doing? Good. How was lunch? Okay, cool. Happy New Year, by the way. It's New Year, new start. Really hope things could go very well for the blockchain industry. So let's start with so my topic today is blockchain gaming and mobile gaming. And essentially, what I want to share with the audience here is, and with you guys here is, mobile gaming has been such a huge success. I don't know why it's going so fast, but clearly not that fast. Yeah, mobile game has been such a huge success, and blockchain game as we have now is still as its infancy. And there are a lot of learnings. When mobile game started, it was actually not really that smooth. It started in 1994 and 1997. We have, you remember Snake and Tetris, the very traditional mobile game, and now evolve into Angry Birds and Candy Crush, those very fancy interactive mobile game. It's been going through a lot of, it's going through a lot of up and downs. But I think there are a lot of learnings we can get from the mobile game industry and apply that to blockchain gaming. So, and this is basically just to recap, what kind of success we have in the mobile game industry. Like mobile game it contributes to over half the whole global gaming industry. And given the huge base, it's still growing the fastest, like 26%, versus console game, PC game in a single digit growth. But primarily because, the smartphone just is so, it's such a huge proliferation in everybody's life these days. And a mobile game not only is the biggest category in the gaming industry, mobile game also is the biggest category in the whole mobile revenue. So, compared with other mobile apps that you have on your phone. So here's a question: can blockchain game replicate the success of what we have in mobile game? It's really, I think it's a really interesting question, and given what we have now, it's very hard to imagine, like blockchain game could contribute over half the whole, global game industry revenue in 10 or 20 years based on what we have right now. But, there are things that we can work on that could allow, to a certain extent, some sort of that kind of imagination in the future. So let's just walk back, I don't know, 20 years or something. Like look at 1994. The two pictures on at the top, Tetris, Snakes. Those are the games like from the old Nokia phones to Angry Birds and a Candy Crush. That's a huge development. Think about how developers move from Snakes to Angry Bird and Candy Crush. A lot of things happen over the past 20 years. Like first on the hardware, like it was very hard to build mobile game back in 1997, I believe, because back then there's no universal operating system for smartphones. For phones in general, because the Snakes you had, the code you have for Snakes, that's going to be different on Nokia phones, on Motorola phones, or any other phones, until we have universal operating system like iOS, Android, and Windows for some Microsoft phones. And infrastructure, back in before 2000, I don't believe that we have Wi-Fi. Maybe we have in certain places we have Wi-Fi, but most people still work with Ethernet, the cables. There's certainly no mobile data elsewhere. Like when you go out on the street, there's no internet. And then we have 3G, 4G, LTE, 5G. Now we have 5G in a lot of countries. And software, I think here I meant back before 2000 or even before 2007, there was no distribution channel for mobile apps or mobile games, just in those categories until we have iOS stores, the Apple Store, the Android, the Google Play stores. That basically enabled the mass adoption of applications, mobile applications. There's a channel, at least there's a gateway for people to download, install the apps. And in terms of talent, before, in the old days, most of the developers are still working at those console game and PC game companies until we have, King, Supercell, those big, mobile game companies. We start to see developers start to shift from PC console games to mobile games. And I think blockchain right now, we're facing a similar similar problems or similar bottlenecks. Whereas I don't think hardware is the biggest problem because we do have very advanced computers these days. I don't think, sorry, I do think infrastructure is the biggest bottleneck right now because not on the telecom, the Wi-Fi side, but more on the protocol, underlying protocol. We don't really have a like high throughput functioning protocol that could support very interactive game. Like think about if you play an interactive game, like every time you change the status of the game, every time you get like credible, every time you earn some score, that status change requires a high throughput. If you want to build a game purely on chain, pure decentralized, that requires a very high functioning, high throughput protocol to support that. Right now, we don't really have it. We have many talented developers working on that, protocol developer working on those very tough problems and collaborate with scientists, people from academia, on those problems. So, it's still in progress. And software, again, back to iOS, Android. Right now, we don't really have decentralized, app stores. I don't even know what decentralized app stores mean. Actually, it's very hard to imagine. Very hard to imagine like in 10 years we're going to have decentralized app stores that could somehow work around the iOS and Android stores. Somehow work because iOS, Android store actually take 15 to 20% the take rate of every in-app purchases right now. So is there any way? Because blockchain essentially is trying to cut all the middleman. Like, is there any way we can work around those? Somehow collaborate with Apple, collaborate with Google, and work around that kind of like centralized app store and have a decentralized app stores. Right now we have decentralized and somehow facilitate a platform to allow people to have or to allow other developers to build applications in that. But is that going to be the future of decentralized app store? Not sure. So right now you only see most of games are rendered through web, where a lot of the mobile game built on side chains are distributed through like APK downloads. But yes, essentially, if you want to have a mass adoption of blockchain gaming, we need to figure out what could be the distribution channel that is decentralized and that sort of like user friendly enough to encourage those developers to build application, decentralized application dApps on the platform. And talents. Right now, most developers are from Supercell, from Tencent, from the mobile game industry. We start to see a lot of talented developers start to work on the blockchain gaming. Some of them are working on the more on the side job or as a hobby. But I think as the industry starts to evolve, we're gonna have more and more talented people start to migrate from mobile game to blockchain gaming. At least I hope that. Yeah. So just I guess just to quickly conclude, just want to share this famous writer. I'm sure everybody knows it. The future is already here. It's just not very evenly distributed in the sense that, for a lot of like, true blockchain believers, they believe a lot of things could be enabled by blockchain in 10 or 20 years. The future is already there. It just we need to figure out a lot of those infrastructure problems, a lot of those problems related to enabling technologies to help us get there. So not evenly distributed. Yeah. So obviously that list is not exhaustive. I know, we have like probably 20 or even more than 50 blockchain game projects already happening. This is just to capture what we have. Maybe in 10 or 20 years, blockchain gaming as a category on its own could probably contribute to 5% of the, or even more of the gaming revenue. And I'm Linda Lu. So here's how to reach me. And I'm very live on Twitter and email, WeChat, and a lot of those channels. Yeah? Oh, I guess they finished it. Okay, cool. Any questions? Can I see any hands? Oh yeah, I saw one. Yeah, cool. That's a very interesting question. So the question is about, right now in my slides, I list blockchain as a standalone category. But this gentleman's question is that, there could be blockchain-enabled mobile game, blockchain-enabled PC game, blockchain-enabled console game. I actually want to believe, blockchain in the future like new user would not realize they're actually playing games on blockchain. Blockchain should be the underlying infrastructure that is enable all the games out there, mobile game, PC game, console game. Yeah, that's what I want to believe. So here I listed out. It's not like my intention actually not to have like blockchain as just a category. It's so different from mobile game. My intention is hopefully in the future blockchain will be the underlying infrastructure, just as AWS as a Google Cloud that is supporting all the games out there, or on-prem technology supporting all the games out there. Blockchain will just become an infrastructure. So blockchain game on its own would not actually be a category. It's more of a, whether your game is rendered through decentralized infrastructure, blockchain, or through centralized infrastructure, your AWS or what other cloud, on-prem, those kind of infrastructure architecture. So, yeah, it's a more of a, depending on how you want to classify it, what kind of infrastructure you want to have in the future. Yeah. Okay, so two parts of question. First question is how blockchain fits into the tech stack over the next 5 years, in the context in the gaming industry. And second is which part of the blockchain actually makes sense for the gaming industry. I think that captures your questions, right? Oh, cool. First question, how does blockchain fit into the tech stack? I personally believe it should be on the infrastructure level. That is underlying protocol that is support. I think the low-hanging fruits right now is more on the collectibles, so like NFT. You use a blockchain as a rail that as a distributed ledger to record all the document all the NFT that users have. In the future, we have gameplays, those all kind of interactions. Have blockchain as an infrastructure to enable that. That's a bigger question. I don't have an answer for it now. Like certainly don't have an answer for it. In the time frame, over the next 5 years, because, are we gonna have Ethereum that can support 100,000 transactions per second in the 5 years? I don't know. That's really a question to the protocol team. I wish we have, but it's a difficult question. I think second part of your question is what part of blockchain actually makes sense to, game users. That's also interesting. I hear a lot of those arguments about like a lot of blockchain game projects right now is more of a solution looking for a problem because a lot of centralized game can deliver much better experience, and a lot of things we say in blockchain game like true ownership, the non-fungible, and immutability. Do gamers really care about that? Like when gamers play Candy Crush, play Angry Birds, do they really care about the stuff they earn, the score, some collectibles they earn from the game? Are they really one of a kind? Do gamers care about that? That's a really good question. I don't know. I care about that, but I don't know whether that could speak to hundreds of millions or even billions of gamers out there. To a lot of gamers, some of them just really just care about I just want to have a really fun interactive experience. I just want to enjoy myself in that virtual world. So yeah, back to your question, so what really about blockchain that can actually, resonate with most of most of gamers out there? I want to start with digital ownership. Some of the stuff like OpenSea, Rarebits, a lot of those platforms are doing some interoperability a platform allow you to trade your collectibles, but that's more of an innovation on the financial trading side. I think that's a good starting point. I think once we have a good infrastructure, I think a lot of those value prop will start to crystallize or start to make sense to gamers. It's just very hard to imagine right now given what we have. But I think ownership, true digital ownership. Yeah, and I think that's a good starting point for now.
All right, great.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.